Resident Evil.
Resident Evil was the pinnacle of survival horror games and was created by Shinji Mikami and Tokuro Fuwara. Originally produced for the Sony PlayStation in 1996, the franchise grew to encompass the third-person shooter genre, to fans' dismay, with the latter games in the series had since had the ire of fans with Resident Evil 5 and 6 respectively. The franchise has some success after with spin-offs such as Resident Evil Revelations, but nothing garnering the previous success. Lo and behold, following the success and dismay of the Silent Hill PT release and Konami's subsequent pulling of the demo and cancellation of the game Silent Hills, Capcom found its doorway to the franchise's resurrection with the playable teaser which was announced during Capcom's E3 2016 presentation, with an amazing trailer that followed. A secondary update known as Resident Evil The Beginning Hour fleshed out more of the game's narrative and gave the player more puzzles to solve in order to develop more height of what the player can expect from the full game. This is the first game in the series to unify both Resident Evil and Biohazard titles into one game, thus unifying the Japanese and English adaptations of the game itself. In this video, I'll be shying away from my normal review process and start to analyse the different elements of the full releases, looking into several elements of the game in order to grasp the elements the game has adapted from its predecessors and other games within the horror genre. Word of note that this section contains spoilers. If you do not want to have your gaming experience spoiled, head to the next section where I discuss the visuals. In 2017, Ethan Winters is drawn to a derelict plantation in Duval, Louisiana by a message from his wife Mia, who has been missing for 3 years. Exploring a seemingly abandoned house, Ethan finds Mia imprisoned in the basement, and during the escape, Mia is possessed by an unknown force and attacks Ethan, forcing him to kill her. After receiving a call from a woman named Zoe offering assistance, Ethan is attacked by a revived Mia and then subdued by Jack Baker, patriarch of the Baker family. Ethan is held captive by Jack, his wife Marguerite, and their son Lucas, and an elderly wheelchair-bound woman. Although Ethan escapes his captors, he is respectively confronted by Jack, who demonstrates the ability to regenerate from fatal wounds and dismemberment. Zoe again contacts Ethan, revealing that she's the baker's daughter. Zoe informs Ethan that she and her family and Mia are all infected with the same ailment, but can be cured with a special serum. Ethan makes his way to an old house to retrieve the serum ingredients, where he is forced to kill Marguerite. After recovering the ingredients, Ethan begins experiencing visions of an unknown young girl. Lucas captures Zoe and Mia before Ethan's return and forces him to navigate a booby-trapped barn to find them. Ethan outwits Lucas, causing him to flee, freeing Zoe and Mia at the same time. Zoe then develops 2 serum doses, but Jack, now heavily mutated, attacks the group, and Ethan uses 1 dose to permanently kill him. Ethan must then choose the cure to either Mia or Zoe. Choosing Zoe leaves Mia heartbroken despite Ethan's promise to send help as he and Zoe escape on the boat. Zoe reveals that the Bakers were infected after Mia arrived with the young girl named Evelyn, when the wreck of a tanker ship washed ashore. To prevent their escape, Evelyn psychically kills Zoe, and Ethan is knocked from the boat by a creature. If Ethan chooses Mia, Zoe gives a bitter farewell to him and Mia as he and Mia escape on the boat. They come across a crashed tanker where they are attacked by the creature knocked out from the boat. Following either choice, Mia ends up on the wrecked ship and searches for Ethan, while experiencing visions of Evelyn, who refers to her as Mother. Eventually, Mia's memory is restored, revealing that she was a covert operative for an unnamed corporation that developed Evelyn as a bioweapon. Mia was escorting Evelyn as she was being transported aboard the tanker when Evelyn escaped contained and sank the ship. She then infected Mia in an effort to force her as her mother. After finding Ethan, Mia gives him a vial of Evelyn's genetic material. If Ethan cured Zoe, Mia succumbs to Evelyn's control and attacks Ethan, forcing him to kill her. If Ethan's cured Mia, she resists her control long enough to steal Ethan out of the ship to save him. After leaving the shipwreck, Ethan discovers a hidden laboratory inside an abandoned salt mine. There, he learns that Evelyn is an E-series bioweapon capable of infecting people with a psychotropic mold that gives her control over her victims' minds, resulting to their insanity, a superhuman regenerative abilities, and a various mutations. Evelyn grew up obsessed with having a family, influencing her to infect Mia and the Bakers and lure Ethan to the Bakers' home. Lucas is is also revealed to have been immunized against Evelyn's control by the organization in exchange for providing observations of her. Using lab equipment and Evelyn's genetic material, Ethan synthesizes a toxin to kill her and then proceeds through a series of tunnels that leads back to the Baker house. Evelyn assaults Ethan with hallucinations, but overcomes them and injects Evelyn with a toxin, ending her facade and revealing her as an elderly woman in a wheelchair who has been rapidly aging since her escape. Evelyn mutates into a large monster, but aided by the arrival of the military squad, Ethan is able to defeat her. With the threat over, the squad and their leader, who identifies himself as Redfield, extracts Ethan by a helicopter. If Ethan did not kill Mia, he throws his phone containing her last message to him from the helicopter saying goodbye. If Mia was cured, she is found alive aboard Redfield's helicopter. As the helicopter flies away, it is shown branded with the Umbrella Corporation logo. Evelyn, the character in general, reminds me a lot of Silent Hill's Alessa, a character who has the ability to control the surroundings with her psychic abilities. So it does draw similarities between the two, and the end story of Evelyn and Ethan have a similar confrontation while Evelyn evolves into a monster in order to eliminate Ethan. In several cutscenes, Evelyn feels the need to unite Mia with Ethan to complete her family, similar to Alessa's need to have a childhood and a family in Silent Hill. Now, Capcom could have used Alessa as a stereotype, or may have drawn similar strengths via the movie used by Team Silent, the inspiration which is the 1976 movie Carrie. The element of Ethan being drawn to the plantation where he finds his missing wife Mia draws a lot from Silent Hill 2, the 2001 sequel to the Silent Hill franchise, in which James Sutherland receives a letter from his wife Mary, who died of an illness 3 years before, similar to the message Ethan had received from his wife Mia. The mediums were changed, but both protagonists have been chasing individuals considered ghosts, so I believe the team behind this drew inspiration in order to give the everyman protagonist a purpose, so to speak. After the initial failure that was Resident Evil 6, Jun Tokachi requested the series be stripped down to its core. The developers figured that stripping the case down to a single location using the first person perspective would allow the user to change and immerse themselves in an environment, especially with the PlayStation VR, which scares the living bejesus out of those who played via the peripheral, giving the full horror experience. The engine used was built from the ground up. It's known as the RE engine and included the VR tools used to provide the game with the new experience. The demo debuted at E3 2015, initially titled Kitchen, which ran using the same engine and gave gamers a chance to experience the VR demo and give Capcom an idea on how they would respond to the survival horror VR experience in general. Gamers were ecstatic at the initial concept, not knowing that the game was a test for what was yet to come. Koshi Nakanishi, the game's developer and the developer for the praised Resident Evil Revelations, Nakashi played all first-person horrors out there and specifically named Outlast as one of the games that stood out for him. The game's Western narrative designer was focused on the story was Richard Peasy. He was the writer of 2 expansions of Fear and also Spec Ops: The Line. With the combination of the 2 individuals and the idea Nakashi played most survival horrors, we can see how he drew his strengths from each game that truly scared him. The game's main designer was Jordan Amaro, a designer who previously worked on Metal Gear Solid 5 and PT with Kojima Productions, and Nakashi seems to have wanted to make sure that the game held the same survival horror charm as its predecessors, and thus wanted to use as many Western elements as possible, and those who drew inspirations from other cult horror classics that inspired their careers, and also to make RE7 different from its predecessors. Now let's go with the proverbial elephant in the room, as the first person perspective from the demos and the game drawn comparisons with fans of Silent Hill PT, the playable teaser that was pulled from Konami, but that's as far as the comparison goes. Or is it? Ethan receives most of his orders in the game via a phone call, similar to the phone call at the end of PT in order to unlock the ending cutscenes. Both calls are triggered in order to convey a message to the player, with PT's the words, "You've been chosen," and RE7, Ethan receives a selection of calls in order to gain more information to provide clues in order to assist Ethan to his end goals. The in-game mechanics were lifted straight from the demo and in turn itself were taken from PT, giving the sense of anxiety to the player as trying to figure out the internal clues that are left. This was changed to more straightforward instructions and prompts in the later games. Similar to Alien Isolation, the horror games from the sense of space and seclusion, the game wasn't as vast as its predecessors. The player would have to use the space provided in order to get past enemies in a limited amount of bullets that you have, so you would have to run past monsters in order to survive and use methods such as closing doors and moving in separate rooms in order to pass hazards in front of you and deviate from the monster's attacks. In order to save health, health and ammo. Shaq News has also spoke about the similarities between RE7 and Capcom's predecessor Sweet Home, the 1989 game, and for the Nintendo Entertainment System. These similarities to Sweet Home include the plot for the film crew going to an abandoned house and a paranormal female presence in the house, and tragic tale involving a family that once lived there. The puzzle mechanics are similar to Resident Evil 2. They are not definitive key combination puzzles, but they are achieved by using objects in the room and also objects around you and levers in order to obtain items that get through dark rooms. The newest use of the feature includes Lucas's birthday puzzle that you can solve using a video cassette for the previous individuals who solved it and died. The use of clues are drawn from the original RE games, allowing players to use their problem-solving skills in order to progress through the game itself. This made the game a lot slower in a sense, but it allows you to think on your feet and makes the game more rewarding upon completion. The videotape style found footage draws similarities to movies such as the Blair Witch Project, giving the player the ability to understand the backstory and background as you piece together the game's prologue. The game's antagonist, the Bakers, draws similarity to movies such as The Hills Have Eyes. Has Tom Phillips from Eurogamer states, the rural southern US setting, meanwhile, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre crossed with The Hills Have Eyes. The woman's wild gabbling and wanting to feed you to her babies are about as how she wants to spit it on you for what you did is generally unsettling. The pacing of the game has changed drastically and has thrown the player into a slow build and slow pacing. This mechanic has been taken directly from the old style RE games, which use tank controls in order to slow the game down drastically and give the player time to migrate through the immerse themselves in the creepy surroundings. The game quickens up when instigating boss fights, with the less run and gun style but more the avoiding attacks and hitting them when they are weak, which is the main aspect of the initial games. James Kozantilis from Game Revolution suggests that Resident Evil 7 is Outlast with AAA clothing from its down-to-earth yet sinister setting, lack of emphasis on combat, and legions of backwards wackadoos chasing you around the claustrophobic locations while you run and hide. RE7's Ethan isn't exactly the Silent Hill protagonist, but I'd submit that Miles Upshur, Outlast's protagonist, simply didn't have a lot to say while you clearly can shoot and others attack your enemies in Resident Evil 7. It doesn't seem to do much, making the run and hide approach much more viable. The footage we've seen so far clearly has several influences, not the least which is the popular horror franchise such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but whether or not you agree with a 1-1 comparison with Outlast in concept and gameplay, though you can't argue what we've seen from RE7 isn't directly influenced by that style of horror offered by indie games. The defend mechanic and blood splatter also gives you an immediate idea of your character's health and ways to deter enemies to get them away from you. Characters seem very similar and less organic from enemies' lack of variety, but still are formidable. You can see stuff like this in games like Dead Space, where you had a different type of meter. You wouldn't have a meter on the screen itself, but you would have it in the accessories that you have, such as the watch that Ethan carries with him. The visuals are muddy, using a contrast of dark tones and monotone colours with a combination of dark and dingy surroundings. They are eye-catching and they expose the game's horror itself. It's the reason why it stays dark, to give the illusion of desperation. A lot of visuals such as the monsters, the nasty food or enclosed surroundings also give that kind of emphasis. Now Down Phoenix suggests that in the recent video that the visuals are stuff of awe and that you can look at and take the surroundings in. And I have to agree, there are a lot more emphasis on textures as they really add to the tension of the game. The objects, the puzzles, the puzzle pieces, everything has a purpose and everything looks to add the atmosphere to the environment. Now, Base Clan did a comparison between Outlast's visuals and RE7's visuals in his video and suggests that the story and narration, especially during the prologue, draws strengths from Outlast, but texturally, Outlast has a more grainy style in comparison and uses more darker greens rather than RE7's dark and dingy tones used. The emphasis on jump scares in aid to shock you help bring about the feeling that shock and awe and leave you feel a sense of anxiety. During an interview with GameSpot, Resident Evil 7 producer Makashi Kawata stated, "I of course played PT, and I thought it was an excellent demonstration of an excellent game. If you want to call it that, of course. I think it looked great, and it had so much promise. And I was unfortunately very disappointed that it didn't come to fruition. That was too bad that happened. I'd just like to share the fact that I really loved it. Despite expressing admiration for PT, Kawata also emphasised the difference between Kojima's teaser and his own upcoming horror title. We were actually creating Resident Evil 7 before PT was announced, so when they announced it, it was kind of like, oh, they're doing the first person too, said Kawata. However, now that we've come this far, we can see that the content of this game is completely different from what the content direction of PT was moving in. On further inspection, I enjoyed Resident Evil 7, and it really was a game changer, using elements from those that came before it to make the game into something new. Yes, there are huge similarities, but I feel like this soft reboot is an amazing addition to the Resident Evil franchise and brings the game back to its survival horror roots. With each enemy you fight, with each item you gain, and the further you see the story develop, it really does add to the game's flavour, and bringing the franchise back to its roots with a new everyman character that the player can identify with surely does something new, yet showing us kind of a familiarity to it as well. Now, as usual with a rather British review, I give a game a score between a 1 and a 5, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best, so this game I give an awesome 4.5 out of 5. Nowhere near perfect, with a cliffhanger that left me scratching my head. It still left me wanting more. RE7 is best played on VR for total immersion.
Oh god, it's like Blair Witch!
And for those thinking that these comparisons are an insult, please note that this is just my opinion. Now this week we shall be back to our regular scheduled programme of tomorrow's A Rather British Review, and I shall be covering the awesome Dishonored. And for those who like this comparison video, please leave a comment below and also give me a like and subscribe if you're new to this channel. If you also want to talk to me in regards to this video in general and let me know your own theories, please leave a comment below, and you can also find me on Facebook and Twitter. And now, this has been Michael Burhan saying to you lovely people that I've got gameplay. Have you?
Be careful. They'll be looking for you.
Daddy's coming. We need to go. We need to go now.
What the fuck are you?
Shut up and listen if you want to stay alive. Ethan, you gotta get out of that house.
Now, I've seen everything. What the fuck? What is that?
What the fuck are you talking about? They're dead. They're all dead.
This house has seen more than you can imagine, and it knows.
No, leave me alone!
Wait!
Ethan, don't lose it. It's important.
fucking family.